Because I walked out of prison dressed in my prison blues. So if you were to sit at my office at my desk, you'll see right behind me on my left side, you'll see my prison blues hanging on the wall, almost behind me. But then when you look in front of my desk and the wall that's in front of my desk, you'll see the parole officer. I got a picture taken of him handing me my certificate of release, right, from parole. So I got my freedom in front of me and my past behind me. Welcome to TYRO TV. I'm Ron Tijerina, and today I have a great guest with me now, and I am pumped. I'm excited about introducing you to TYRO Ron Crosby out of Cleveland, Ohio. And so without further ado, Ron, do you want to be called Ron or Ronald?
Ronald, and either one of them.
Okay, well, I'm going to call you Ron because they call me Ron. So Ron, let me ask you this, man. So I want to hear about your journey. I want to hear about your story. So when did you get out? What year was that?
I got out in 2020, September 2020. And from
so you've been home now 4 years? Is that right?
Yeah, I've been home about 4 years. Yep. One more year left on parole.
Wonderful, wonderful. Has it been easy, the transition?
I mean, it been like, I want to say it's been like a balancing act because, being incarcerated in 1995 and then coming out in 2020 was like, it was an eye-opener.
So how many years is that?
Yeah, I think like 25. I think I did like 25 years straight.
Man, well, you look amazing. You look great.
Thank you, my brother.
Because 25 years, we call that a mini life, right? Well, I did 15, so that's mini life. So you might be, that's a long time, man. So it is great to see you. It is great to see you smiling. So, I want to talk about what you're doing and how you're maintaining success and how you overcame your barriers. Let me ask you that. What's the biggest barriers thus far you had to overcome?
Well, the biggest barrier that I had to overcome was really learning the technology and just getting past that part, because everything's automated and, you pay your bills automated, and then also living in a cashless society. And another barrier was readjusting to family life. And then also looking at the facts that everybody that I used to hang with is almost still standing still. So overcoming them barriers, those type of barriers.
Man, let me go back to what you just said. You said something about when you came back, everybody was standing still. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean by that?
So what I mean like that, in the old neighborhoods that I come from or hung out in, right? A lot of those individuals, one time I think my second or third month, I was standing out on Huff where I grew up at, and then I just blurted out like I had Tourette's, man, is this what I used to do? Because they was just standing there in the general conversation. It wasn't nothing about no international news or no local news. It was just who's still partying, who dating who, and stuff like that. And then the strange thing was because I carry a book with me a lot of places that I go, and a lot of people was like, what's the point when you could be you can look at it on YouTube or you can read it on your phone? Why do you still have a hardback book?
I gotta, what you just said, standing still, life was standing still, because I experienced the same thing when I got out and went back to the old friends and seeing how they were doing and holding up and seeing what they've accomplished since I was gone for 15 years. And it was like the Twilight Zone, right? Going back into time. And as soon as I got back in that environment, I'm like, what is going on here? They're still doing and acting the same way as when I left. And I ran out of there. I literally said, I got to go, guys. And they looked at me like, you leave? You just got here. No, yeah, I'm cool. Take care of your business. You guys do what you're doing. I'm out of here. And I've never gone back. I never looked back. I was like, this ain't for me, man. These guys are still unconscious. And I really appreciate what you said, that, you want to make change, you got to make the change. So that's what I want to talk about now, Ronald. When you got home, well, first of all, let's go back. You became a TYRO in 2016, right? You took the program. How were you introduced to the word of TYRO, the Ridge Project?
Well, I was introduced to the Ridge Project like way before I was introduced to, because you had came in one of the facilities that I was in, Lake Erie Correctional, in like 2004, 2003, and you was bringing in the introduction of the TYRO program itself. And what was so amazing about the program, it was like because we was doing a lot of programs, and then we was like in the state where like, why are we doing this? Or like myself, like because I was running programs, doing debate clubs, and I'm like, man, why am I doing this? These guys ain't adhering to that. But then you had came in, and that you had gave your introduction. He was like, shoot, I just got through doing 18 years, 13 years, and stuff like that for a crime I didn't commit. And I was like, man, here go an actual person that's doing exactly what we say we doing. And then took his program, went out, right? And what was astronomical was the fact that this was for fathers. For fathers. This is for the individual who gets there, who makes the transition through, through the penitentiary or through prison and wants to be a father. And that just blew me away.
Well, I tell you what, that was a long time ago. I'm telling you, I'm putting back when I first started Lake Erie Correctional, and that was a while back, But I want you to know I am so proud of you because I've been following you on social media and seeing the positive impact and influence you do have among the community. So let's go forward. Let's fast forward now. What are you doing today? And in fact, can you show us your T-shirt that you have on? I like it. What's it say?
It say we're not defined by our record. So when I got out, right, and I was sitting around and I was looking at things, right, and we kept running into like what is, and what your audience might not know is collateral sanctions. And what those collateral sanctions are the barriers that we face after incarceration. So one of my mottos is, we did our time. So we want to be civilians again. So that's why I say we're not defined by our records. Because a lot of places that I go, or a lot of places that any individuals go, when they are released, they're defined by that record. But what we're saying, like at Ohio Organizing Collaborative, what we're saying is the person did their time. So we know that it's 1 million plus in Ohio with a felony record and or been arrested, and they got family, friends, they got the faith community, and they have their community. And what you end up running into, because they do a lot of reentry programs in the inside, or a lot of people come in and do job fairs, but once you come out, like the one thing that we're dealing with now is the housing plan. Because if you don't have a home and you just got a job, then you're still in that same position. And the recidivism rate is so it can become high from an individual perspective if you allow it to. So what we do is, like, again, we're working on collateral sanctions, and then there's a House Representative Hillier. He has the GROW Act, which is Getting Rehabilitating Ohio's Working Again. And with that act, if it's passed, it can get like the low-level misdemeanors and all that. They get their records sealed, and then they won't have to go through all that. So that's just an extension of what I learned from like TYROs, when you're dealing with because I always go when I use this, and I use this one term and I let people know, like, you're gonna live in two hoods. And people like, two hoods, I live in one hood. And I'm like, no, you're gonna either live in childhood or in adulthood.
Boy, yeah.
I want to remain in adulthood.
That's a good word. Good memory there too. When we work with individuals that are incarcerated, we're working with grown people, right? But we're grown men with little boy issues. Because one of the things that we talk about is when we were in prison, right? Ron, you remember this. You and I weren't buying our own toilet paper.
No.
We're grown-ups. We're adults, right? We're of age. But yet somebody had to buy us toilet paper. And that's something that we appreciate each and every day, right? We hope we don't take that for granted. And that's when we tell people, look, when you can buy your own toilet paper, then you're welcome to the circle of adults. But until you're letting somebody else buy that, something that's so common, something necessity, you
Yeah.
haven't arrived yet. And so, with Ron, let me ask you. So, what are you doing now today to help others? You had 25 years in prison, and that's a lot of wisdom. That's a lot of expertise because you live to tell about it. So,
Right.
what are you doing now in empowering others so that they can get on this path of success? And then I want to talk to you about, how are you stopping the cycles of self-destruction from poverty, incarceration, and that entitlement mentality? Because that's something that we see prevalent in our society today, where people think that society owes them a living or owes them something. And you and I know firsthand, nobody owes us nothing. Do we want something? We got to be about our business and we got to execute in order to make something happen. So, what are you doing today? How are you influencing people?
So how I influence people first I haven't been doing like voter registration because if you don't have no seat at the table, you become part of the menu. The other things that I do, I go out and I mentor individuals, right? And then I try to like keep in contact with individuals who did the same amount of time that we have done. Because like I say to the individuals when I contact them, right, we need to go in the yard. And what that means is like when like Ron and myself, for example, we used to get up in the morning, probably go to eat, and then hit the yard, and then you have a conversation every place. But what I have noticed is that individuals like myself and others, females and or males, right? We don't have that conversation no more. So I call like probably 5 to 10 people per week just to make sure that they that we having this conversation. Like, what are you going through? I mean, what's your timeline look like? What are some things that's like
Accountability.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yes, right.
accountability. Yep.
Because with like, and then like I'm telling them, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm only 4 years old right now because I just re-entered society. And like, again, my maturation, or I had to mature back into this. And sometimes I notice even with myself that I suffer from arrested development. Like I was headed back to the house, right? And I went down through the old neighborhood, but my mind went down the wrong street. But what Cleveland Clinic had brought the street. So it's a whole building there. So I'm just at a stop sign. Like, what happened to the street? What happened to the street? And the other things that I also been dealing with is like stopping at senior citizens buildings, right? And just going into the little office rooms where the recreation room, and just talking to that because what I noticed as our society do is like we forgot about our seniors and just stopping by, giving them a conversation, seeing how they doing, man, it's a joyous
Wow.
thing.
Well, you mentioned arrested development. We're working with individuals that, yeah, maybe they're 40, maybe they're 50 years old, but they're still, we're still working with people that old, that at that age, helping them learn how to read still,
Exactly.
how to pay their bills on time, how
Right.
to, pay their reinstatement fee, get the negotiation going
Yeah.
so they can get a driver's license.
Yeah.
Um, but that arrested development is real, right? It's a real thing.
Look, it's real. You can touch it.
But I'm
It's
so
real.
glad to see that you are an example of what it means to embrace, not you've embraced your story. You've embraced what
Exactly.
got you where you're at today. Now you're able to overcome that story where your story no longer owes you or owns you, but you own it.
That's like I tell people, like, you can't be anchored to that. You gotta stay in the current. Because I give a lot of people examples and they always say like they look at the prison thing and like it's Folsom or Attica or Orange is the New Black. And I'm like, a lot of individuals that are did time beside me, we did like real time. And I let them know, like, I mean, I'm like if you were in that situation where you wake up and your clothes blue, you go to the child hall, the tray is brown. You go to the library is white. The dorm is white. So you have to keep recreating and rejuvenating yourself every day. And seeing the same thing makes you look at the future and it keeps you current. But I think a lot of individuals leave the incarceration and come back to the old neighborhoods and memories start coming together and they start taking shape, right? And I tell them like you got a new environment, man, bring on new stuff, man. And like I tell a lot of people, man, the truth don't come out your mouth, it come out your pores. You gotta be stuff because that's the only way you're gonna get it. again this morning, I was with a gentleman, and he had left prison 19 years ago. But when I seen him standing at the bus stop, he was sitting there slumped over, head down, and I busted a U-turn, and I pulled up on him at the bus stop. Got out, he like, "Oh, Ron, man, oh man, you were like a teacher," because I gave him Spirit of the Man by Ayana Van Zandt. So I was like, "Man, what's going on?" He was like, "Man, I've just been dealing with depression, and I'm running late for work, and so I keep a prison picture in the car with me, and I took out the prison picture, and he was like, "Man, what's that about?" I'm like, "Man, you gotta see, man. Even in your worst, Ron, do you hear me?" I said, "Even in your worst," I said, "There's somebody right now putting their feet on some footprints, you know what I'm saying, and getting unclothed, and the mentality of that is that they're gonna go right into doing prison. They're gonna go directly into doing prison. They're gonna go find some cards to play, dominoes to play, right now a game to play, right? And none of that from a mental state, right, affects them. But as soon as they say you release, it's time to go. A lot of these things start happening, like the depression, the suicide. You know what I'm saying? The post syndrome. So I had to let that brother know. I'm like, man, I carry this picture, right? And I carry this picture not to revert back to it or to glorify it, but just to let myself know, and I'll let others know, like, man, there's something else done. You done that. You done that. You done your time. You done that. And
Yeah.
then don't come outside like we always used to say, like, don't come outside and put a fence around yourself.
You know, that's a great word. I actually have, because I walked out of prison dressed in my prison blues. So if you were to sit at my office at my desk, you'll see right behind me on my left side, you'll see my prison blues hanging on the wall.
Right.
Almost behind me. But then when you look in front of my desk and the wall that's in front of my desk, you'll see the parole officer. I got a picture taken of him handing me my certificate of release, right, from parole. So I got my freedom in front of me and my past behind me, right? My future's in front of me. Freedom. Living it, walking it. As a reminder, I don't glorify that uniform, but it reminds me of where I came from. And that thing you look at, that ID that you look at, also helps empower us to stay flat-footed, right?
Guess
As
what
we
I'm
grow and we excel and become better, we got to remember, right? Don't let that ego sign a check you can't cash, because remember where you came from. Remember
Exactly.
where you grew up at. And I embrace it as you do, Ron, in which I really appreciate you telling us that story, because we challenge all tyros when come out, when you get off parole, make sure you get a picture of you and your parole officer taking that picture so that you can put it on your refrigerator. You can put it somewhere so you can remember, hey, do not take this freedom for granted, because just as easily as it was restored, you can easily give it back.
Guess what else I did to the brother this morning?
What'd you do?
I had to sit him in the passenger side of the truck, and then I pulled the mirror down, and then I slid, because you can slide it to the side, and I was like, man, go ahead and talk to yourself, man. You need to talk to yourself, man.
Tell yourself, and that's a self accountability, self check, right? It was that
Exactly.
saying, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
So he was like, man, I'm at war with myself. I said, okay. I moved the mirror out the way, and I was like, man, I had to do a TYRO interview. But what was so profound about the TYRO program was when it was time for them gentlemen to stand in front of that mirror. So here, you in front of that mirror, what you want to tell yourself? Because if you at war with yourself, then who coming to help you?
Man, that's a good word, Ron. Who's
You at
coming to
war.
help you? If you know that battle first begins within here. And
Exactly.
and Tyro gives you the tools, the equipment to use so you can do that battle that's in the mind. And you can have victory in the mind. So that when you can help others out here, people will rally around you and help support you in your vision. So Ron, let me change gears a little bit. So you've been out now 4 years, right?
Correct.
And you got one more year left of parole?
Correct.
Man, this is good stuff, Ron. So now you're in a relationship. So you were a dad, right? Or are you a dad now? Tell us about your.
I'll get that. Yeah.
So where you at there? What's going on there?
So I'm currently in a relationship, right? And I want her name is Bridget Evans, and I was just like settling in, and what I want to do is make her my fiance. But again, like one of the things that like I know is like you're dealing with like parole stuff. So by September 2025, I want to be married.
Oh man. Well, just putting it out there, I marry people. I'm a minister.
I
So
got that.
I'll put that
No,
out there. But man, that's
exactly.
wonderful. Congratulations, And you always got to remember, real men don't play house, Ron, right? We don't play house, we build them. Right? Real men
Right.
don't play in playgrounds, we build them. And I want to encourage you in your relationship that as you guys grow together and you strengthen that, you do put a ring on her finger and that we're gonna do something totally different because what got us locked up was all that childlike behavior, right?
Exactly.
Now we want to do it the right way. Wonderful, wonderful. So you were incarcerated during COVID. Real quick, can you just give us what was that like being, because I know it was locked down, so you didn't get no visits and any of that nature. So what was it like doing time during COVID?
So during time during COVID, because we were locked down, right? And a lot of things were like challenging and difficult because like Grafton Correctional where I was at, like it maintained probably on a regular time it'd be like probably 1,350 people there. But once COVID struck, they let about like almost half of the compound out. So we had to be like 6 feet away from each other. We had to go to child one dorm, well not the dorm, but one half at a time. And then like we had to be called out for commissary, like 10 people at a time, where they would bring the commissary. And then if they did like they did temperature checks and all that. So if your temperature was off like that particular day, because they did it like 3, 4 times through the 6 o'clock count, 11 o'clock count, 4 o'clock count. But if your temperature varied or if it was changed, they put you in isolation because they wanted you to be isolated from the
Wow.
people. Another thing that was difficult throughout the COVID challenge was like um, taking the COVID test itself. So they would come in sporadically and get a whole compound to test. And again, if it looked like you was going to test positive, you were put in isolation. And a lot of guys went to isolation, and you know how that go. I mean, because you're not going because you violated a ticket or you did anything to get yourself there. But the COVID puts you automatically in there, so your property get lost. In transition.
Yeah.
TV gone, books gone,
So what I
and
hear is that when COVID was lifted and then operations went back to normal, you got a whole new appreciation, right? Of just
no,
everyday freedoms that you do get inside the penitentiary compared to being totally locked down like with COVID.
right. So like COVID was still because COVID was being cleared up out here, but COVID was still like mandatory there. So prior to leaving, say when I had to leave, I had to go to segregation and do like 21 days there because society they wanted to make sure society knew that we were clear and we didn't have COVID before we could leave. So I did 21 days in segregation prior to leaving.
Well, Ron, if there's something that you could tell the men and women who are incarcerated, about being a dad, being a man of honor, being a good person, if there's three things that you could tell the people that are watching this across everywhere, wherever they're going to see this in all these prisons, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them to know that, there's life after penitentiary, there's life after this experience they're having? What would you give them? How can you empower them?
So the first and most important thing that I want all the individuals to know that are currently incarcerated is right. Um, just because you are physically incarcerated, right, doesn't mean that you have to be mentally or spiritually incarcerated. Because what I have learned, right, in reentering society is that, right, my body was mad at my mind for getting it trapped because my mind was free, but my body was locked up. So I want the individuals to know that while you're there, put something in your head. Like the second and most important thing is learn about communication because communication is going to be the number one key. Because when I returned to society after COVID, right, what I learned about society was that I came to back into a society that was a touchless society, because a lot of people don't greet or say hello or say good morning. So communication is key, because the root word of communication is to commune. So always be able to communicate with yourself and be able to communicate with others, and especially communicate with your community. The last and most imperative thing is learn a lot about finance while you're there. Make that your top key, because to be financially stable and be financially literate is going to be great, like credit, and learn about those things. So my three things would be like communication, finances, right? And also to learn something about yourself. And in addition to that, if there's a skill like plumbing, electrical, carpentry, even computer skills, right? Hone and master that skill, because those are a lot of, in that particular area of employment, a lot of those areas are great. So again, and man, you gotta love yourself and make
Yes.
sure that you know.
So, everybody, this has been a wonderful conversation with Ron Crosby. I've enjoyed it. And this is a guy who's did 25 years, been on 4 years, and he's successful. He's living life. The dreams that he's had while he was incarcerated, he is now excelling in them. Now, this isn't a overnight sensation, right? He's had to work hard, and he's continually to work hard. Nothing is taken for granted. Ron, I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. And I know it wasn't a lot. There's a lot more to your story than just this brief time we've had together. But I am proud of you, and I am successful. So again, if there's any one more thing that you can add to the closing of this episode, say it now.
Hi, my name is Ronald Crosby, and I am a TYRO.
Woo, that's what I'm talking about. So listen, everybody, until next time, always remember that I am rooting for you.